Kyo was a loser with no social life because he was overshadowed by his hot popular sister. However, when he discovers she's actually a freaky otaku who goons to 2D step bros, he decides to help fulfill her Alabama fantasies by clapping her in secret. Everything begins one morning when Kyo wakes up and finds his sister, Karino, acting a little too nice to him. He grows suspicious because they hate each other, but before he can confirm if she's a fake, he slips out of bed and realizes that it was just another weird dream. After that, he joins his family for breakfast, but gets tired of eating since his parents can't stop praising his sister. Later that day, when he returns home from school, he's shocked when he sees Karino because although he hates her, he can still tell that she's hot. While trying to ignore the thought of getting freaky with her, he gets careless and bumps into her, sending them both crashing to the ground. Karino gets pissed and yells at Kyo even though he offers her a helping hand. After she storms out of the house, Kyo finds a sus game about hot stepsisters and freaks out, wondering who it belongs to. But when his mom almost catches him gooning to it, he decides he'll figure out who's behind it as fast as possible. That evening during dinner, he brings up a conversation about adult anime to see who would get triggered by it. His parents don't react, but he notices Karino struggling to eat, which makes him suspicious of her. After the meal, Kyo heads out to the grocery store, but on the way, he realizes someone's in his room, so he rushes back home only to find that it's Karino. Though shocked, Karino plays dumb, refusing to explain what she was doing. However, her mood shifts when Kyo flashes the sus game from earlier. She's also red from embarrassment, but Kyo, tired of her whining, tells her to just throw it away. Before leaving, Karino musters the courage to ask what he would think of her if it were hers. Kyo tells her he doesn't care and promises not to make fun of her hobbies, so she quietly leaves the room. That night, Karino sneaks into Kyo's room and jumps on top of him. She then slaps him awake and tells him to come to her room, begging that he doesn't make fun of her. She reveals her entire anime and video game collection, which shocks Kyo because it's big enough to start an online store. Among them, a game called Maruru stands out, and though they're expensive, Karino explains she bought them using the money she made through modeling. Kyo goes through her magazines, surprised that she actually has a job. Unlike his broke self, she drops her guard and asks for his honest opinion about her hobbies, and so Kyo says he's fine with it, and she becomes excited. Still, Kyo can't help but wonder why all the games are about hot stepsisters. Karino then starts approaching him, so he backs away, thinking she wants his sausage. However, Karino stops and mentions that she likes her games because they contain cute female characters. Curious, Kyo wonders why she's into stuff like that because mostly guys buy it, but she tells him she doesn't know and feels insecure about it because she can't help herself. She then wonders if she should come clean to their parents, but Kyo dreads the idea because Karino's is cooked if their dad finds out. He agrees to keep her secret and even promises to be there for her anytime she needs help. Karino blushes at this, but when Kyo asks if she had any other reasons for buying her weird collections, she realizes he means a happy stepbrother ending and calls him a disgusting loser. As he heads to bed again, she wakes him up one more time and forces him to play an adult video game for her, claiming she just wants his opinion. Kyo refuses, saying he feels uncomfortable because sus scenes might pop up, so Karino swaps it for a more appropriate game. This time, she lets him take her computer and assigns him the game as homework, ordering him to finish it by next week. A few days later, Karino's friends meet up with her at school, and one of them, Kanako, teases her for having a boyfriend since she's always on her phone. Karino says she doesn't have a boyfriend and that she was only on her phone to check her work schedule. Her other friend, Ayase, interrupts and reminds her that she doesn't have to work today, so she suggests they go out. Karino agrees, but on the way out, she notices some otaku guys talking about anime and feels sad when Kanako calls them worthless. At home, she snaps at Kyo when he reveals he still hasn't finished the game she gave him days ago. But Kyo fumbles an excuse about being preoccupied with other stuff, just when he thinks he's off the hook. He's shocked when Karino tells him to bring the video game to her room. There, Karino yells at him for not making any progress in the game, and he argues that he doesn't know what to do except just push through it. Hearing this, Karino decides to make things easier for him so he can finish the game and start the next one. That's when Kyo starts regretting ever offering to help her, figuring his energy would be completely drained before he's done. Still, he realizes she has no friends she can talk to about these kinds of games, so he suggests she make new friends who share her interests. The idea sounds solid, but Karino feels skeptical since being outed as an otaku would ruin her social life because most girls make fun of them. She fears losing her popularity if her secret gets out, so Kyo advises her to make new friends outside her usual circle, but he's still clueless about how she'll start. The next day at school, Kyo lies exhausted from all the therapy he's been doing for Karino, so his best friend, Manami, checks on him. At first, Kyo refuses to say anything, but when she presses him, he opens up. That evening, thanks to Manami, he returns home with lots of suggestions for Karino on where she can meet people like her. While browsing a website, Karino receives a message from a girl named Saori, who approves her request to join an otaku community. Saori welcomes her to the group and politely invites her to an outdoor meeting with other girls next week. When the time comes, Kyo joins Karino in the city, but she makes sure he keeps some distance so people won't think they're dating. Still, she insists he tag along to the meeting since she's nervous and it's her first time. Kyo considers it, but since it's an all-girls meeting, he thinks it'll be awkward to attend. Karino jokingly tells him to cross-dress, but after taking another look at him, she calls it off, saying there's no way a dress could hide his build. Eventually, Kyo offers to watch from a distance, so he heads into the venue first and grabs a seat. He's shocked when he gets served by cute girls in maid cosplay, but he plays it cool to avoid attention. A while later, Saori walks in with her group for their meeting, and Kyo almost chokes on his drink when he hears her last name, Vagina. When she begins the meeting, she allows the girls to chit-chat and build bonds, but everyone except Karino gets chatty. Kyo notices this and feels bad for her, so after the meeting, he tries to cheer her up with a good head pat, but she smacks him, frustrated that she couldn't hold a conversation with anyone. Seeing her mood, Kyo suggests they check out a good spot, but on their way, Saori begs them to wait. Seeing them together makes Saori assume they're dating, but Karino rebukes Kyo, insisting she'd rather end up with Shrek instead, as Kyo takes the L. He starts wondering if his mother cheated because he looks nothing like Karino, but he drops the thought when Saori invites Karino to an after-party. Saori insists because she noticed Karino wasn't chatty enough during their meeting, and Karino agrees to attend when she learns that only one extra person will be joining them. Afterward, Saori leads the way to a restaurant where she introduces her friend Kuro to Kyo and Karino. Turns out, Kuro is just like Karino, who didn't speak to anyone during the previous meeting. When Kuro notices Karino's revealing outfit, she wonders if she's the freaky type or something, so Karino gets pissed and calls her out for dressing like a Walmart mannequin on clearance. This hits a nerve because Kuro's dress is inspired by her favorite anime character from the Mascara series. But Karino worsens things by trash-talking the anime, saying that hers is better. She mentions her favorite anime show, Mururu, but when Kuro hears this, she calls Karino a degenerate freak, insisting that only gooners on steroids watch it. The comment starts an argument between both sides, and while they battle over who's the loudest, Kyo watches and starts regretting why he joined his sister. He tells them to quit yelling since it's just an anime, but once both girls give him the look, he realizes he needs to zip it or else they'll chop off his sausage. All the while, Saori watches everything from the side and smiles, because at least the girls are roasting each other rather than staying on their phones. Still, she decides to cool things down with a compulsory anime shopping session at the mall. After they are done, Karino thanks Saori for the timeout and waves goodbye to Kuro, while Kyo gets excited because Karino has made new friends. Later that evening, during dinner, Karino's mom asks about her day, and that's how her father realizes that she was out with friends. He gets pretty protective when he sees her dress and tells her to be mindful of what she wears outside. However, Karino gets pissed after hearing this and decides to leave the table, while Kyo sits there, wondering why no one asks about him. He clears his head by playing the video game Karino gave him, and after emptying 3 baby oil containers, he finally finishes the game. Immediately, he informs Karino, who then asks if he found the game interesting at all. Kyo admits the game was interesting, but as Karino asks him for more details, he evades answering by asking how things are going with Saori and Kuro. Karino says she spoke to them not long ago, and they are scheduled to meet again soon. Kyo smiles after hearing this and teases her for having new friends, so she calls him a useless creep and slams the door on him. The following week, Karino smiles while listening to some otakus talk about sus animes, but snaps out of it when Ayase shows up. She reminds her about their upcoming shoot, so that afternoon they go out to take hot pictures of themselves. Midway through, Ayase asks Karino if she has plans for the weekend since she'd like to go out, but Karino says she'll be occupied. Hearing this, Ayase wonders if she now has a boyfriend, but Karino insists that she's a single Pringle. At night, she calls Kuro and mentions that her favorite anime sucks because she's watched it. When Kuro asks why, Karino tells her it's because she needs to have a dictionary next to her while watching the show, so Kuro flat out calls her a dumb Ignoring that, Karino asks if she's watched Mururu, but Kuro tells her she can't spend her money on such. Still, Karino insists she watches it and even offers to get her the first season for a start. The next morning, Kyo wakes up and wonders where Karino is, so their mom tells him Karino is out shopping with friends. She finds it weird that Kyo is asking about Karino, since they're not usually close, but Kyo quickly tells her that nothing is going on between them. Elsewhere, while shopping with Saori and Kuro, Karino gets excited because she gets to buy a limited collection of her favorite characters. Meanwhile, Kyo meets Manami and gives her an update on everything that happened with Karino lately. He becomes sleepy when he's done talking, so Manami summons the courage to let him lie on her lap. Though she makes it obvious, the airhead loser doesn't see it, and he misses his chance to get Oni-chan services from her. Later that afternoon, Karino and her friends stop by a restaurant, and Kuro almost loses it when Karino threatens to play an adult video game in public. Karino tells her to be grateful since she's choosing to put it away, but Kuro ignores her and gives her the middle finger. Afterward, Karino reveals the Mururu anime collection she got for Kuro, and Saori reveals she might watch the anime since Karino hasn't shut her mouth about it. Curious, Kuro asks why Karino chose to meet in the city, and Karino says it's because it's risky for someone they know to find out that they're otakus. However, she's shocked when Kuro reveals that her parents know about her hobbies and that they're cool with it. Saori says the same thing and reveals that being a freaky otaku is nothing to be ashamed about. Hearing this makes Karino grow excited, so she suggests they check out another spot to see more Rizz anime. Moments later, Kyo receives a picture from Saori and realizes that Karino is having fun with Kuro, but he gets home and is shocked to learn that his father caught Karino with an adult video game. Karino sits in silence, wishing the ground could swallow her, but when she gets fed up with everything, she runs out of the house. Her mother notices and informs Kyo, who immediately chases after her to prevent her from doing something stupid. On the way, Kyo easily loses Karino's trail, but by paying close attention to the streets, he sees her taking her anger out on a drumming set. Everyone around her freaks out when they see her like that, as they wonder if she has a few screws loose or something. Kyo shows up and taps her from behind, but she punches him in the face, thinking it's some plot-thirsty stranger. She asks him what he's doing there, and he tells her he came looking for her since she ran out of the house. At a restaurant, Kyo asks what happened, and she gets pissed when she recalls what her father told her. Earlier, when she was caught with the freaky video game, her father told her he was comfortable with her being a model, but said games like that were bad for her, especially because people who play them are scorned by society. He also told her that her hobbies were useless and disgusting, and it struck a nerve, which caused her to leave the house. Presently, Karino grows pissed thinking about what her father said, but while she breaks down in tears, Kyo tells her she needs to pick between keeping her hobbies or giving them up since their father already knows about them. Karino gives it deep thought and decides that she'll never give up her hobbies, so Kyo promises to help handle their father. That evening, when he gets home, he confronts his father concerning Karino's case and tries to convince him to accept her hobbies. Midway through, he mistakenly reveals that Karino has other freaky video game collections in her room, but tells his father to allow her to keep them. Curious, the old man wonders why Kyo is protecting Karino, so Kyo opens up to him about the new friends Karino made and the things she's bound to lose if he forces her to give up her hobbies. When he notices that his dad is still being uptight about the whole situation, he threatens to frustrate him, so the old man considers accepting an apology from Karino and even allowing most of her hobbies. However, he doesn't change his mind about allowing her to play adult video games, so he heads off to her room to get rid of her Rizz collections. At that moment, Kyo panics, stuck between fighting his dad or apologizing to Karino, but he decides to take the fall, claiming that he's the one behind the video game. His old man finds this hard to believe, so he makes it sound convincing by lying about taking Karino's laptop and playing adult games on it. He takes things too far when he mentions that even his mommy has accepted him gunning to Rizz magazines. While he runs his mouth about how much he loves adult anime, his dad gets fed up and punches him in the face, telling him to do whatever he wants. With that, Kyo secures the win, though he ends up going to school the next day with a disfigured face. Manami sees him and becomes worried about him, but when she asks what happened, he only tells her he's been through a lot. Later that day, Kyo returns home and meets Karino arguing with Kuro over the phone, and he's happy that her life is getting back to normal. As he's about to head to his room, Karino thanks him for saving her, so when he looks back to reply, he's shocked because she now looks so cute in his eyes. A few days later, Karino notices that Kyo has been spending more alone time in his room lately, so she calls him out for finishing 4 body lotions in 2 days. However, Kyo claps back, saying that she's the one who forced him to play adult video games and insists that she should be praising him instead. Turns out, even after finishing all that lotion, Kyo still hasn't finished the recent game Karino gave him, and it gets Karino pissed when she finds out. She tells him to hurry up and finish the game, even if it means he'll have to become baby oil ambassador, because she wants to trash him in a 1v1 match. She recommends a few websites Kyo can use to get better at the game, so he decides he'll check them out tomorrow. Before he leaves, Karino tells him her friends are coming over later tomorrow and that he shouldn't show his ugly face or try to flirt with them. After hearing this, Kyo heads off to check the websites Karino recommended to see how fast he can level up his gameplay. Once he's done with everything, Saori texts him, thinking he's Karino, but after he clarifies his identity, she asks about how he's been and brags about winning against Karino every time they compete in the game. As she mentions that she uses Karino to keep her 80% win rate, Kyo realizes why Karino was in a bad mood earlier. He then asks Saori to teach him a few tricks about the game so he can trash Karino too. Saori replies with a smiley emoji after seeing this and offers to host a tutorial session with him over the phone. The following day, Kyo lies passed out in the living room because of all that gooning from yesterday, but he's forced to get up when he realizes that Karino's friends are at the door. When they get in, Isa greets him, and Karino gets jealous because Kyo is staring. She tells him not to look and then forces him to get holed up in his room playing exclusive video games. When Kyo is fed up with all the plot on screen, he lies down thinking about Isa, but he snaps out of it when he overhears Karino's friends talking next door. Kanako thinks Karino has a boyfriend because she has been acting shady lately, and Kyo starts getting goosebumps because he doesn't want the girls to find out about Karino's other friends. He listens closely when Isa asks about him and gets excited when she calls him a nice person, but that smile gets flushed down the toilet when Karino calls him a loser who narrowly survived her mother's birth control pills. When he gets fed up with the roasts, he heads downstairs to clear his head, but he stops by the door to get a package instead. Shocked, he wonders why the package is addressed in his name, but that's when Karino shows up and gets the wrong impression, thinking Kyo got the package for her since it looks like a makeup box. When Kyo tries to explain things to her, she ignores him and thanks him for the package instead. As she runs off to her room, Saori calls Kyo and confirms that she sent the package in his name because she wasn't sure of Karino's. However, she mentions that the content of the package has nothing to do with makeup, explaining that she only used the box to disguise all the weird Maruru toys Karino asked for recently. Shocked, Kyo ends the call and dashes into Karino's room to prevent her friends from seeing what's in the box. Karino prevents him from entering, thinking he's up to no good again, but he brushes by her and secures the box. Karino ends up chasing after him to get it, and when he refuses to give it up, she decides to aim for his family jewels as he tries to evade the kick. Kyo loses balance and falls on top of Karino. In this position, he accidentally fondles something soft and squishy, and that's when he realizes that something was going to get longer and harder than his day. But before plot can be developed, the other girls catch him in that position, and Karino ends up yelling at him to get out. A few hours later, Kyo sits outside thinking about his life, but when it's time for the girls to leave, Ayase tells him she's sure he had no bad intentions toward Karino, because it looked like he was trying to protect her from something. She then tells him to forgive Karino for yelling at him and offers to exchange contacts so they can keep talking. Kyo agrees, but after Ayase leaves, Karino drops the act and invites him inside. She figures that Kyo was trying to prevent her friends from seeing what's in the box, but tells him to make it up to her for sampling her plots without permission. A few days later, Kyo decides to take Karino out to an anime event alongside Saori and Kuro, and Karino nags about being hot because of the weather. Once inside, she gets excited when Saori shows her some girls who publish manga similar to her favorite, and she takes the pleasure of buying a few dozen of them. Afterward, they all head outside, where Karino mocks Kuro's outfit and tells her to show a bit of skin. She takes off Kuro's coat because of the heat, and though she compliments Kuro's looks, Kuro feels violated because Karino acts like she's the cutest. Kyo can't help but laugh as they argue, but the next thing he knows, he finds himself carrying all the girls' shopping bags. As time goes on, Karino insists on checking out one of her favorite video game collections, but she becomes sad when she learns that it's sold out. Luckily for her, a staff member arrives and tells her a single disc is left, but she'll have to compete against some dude with a 100% win rate to get it. Karino thinks it's going to be a walkover and runs her mouth about how she'll win, but she gets knocked out in the game merely 5 seconds in. Saori goes next and meets the same fate, but when it's Kuro's turn, everyone watching cheers loudly because she's the only one who placed the other guy on his toes. She easily defeats him and secures the disc, but offers to give it to Karino instead. Shocked, Karino wonders why Kuro's being nice all of a sudden, and since she hesitates to collect it, Kuro asks if she doesn't understand human speech again. She goes on to roast Karino for being incompetent, so Karino claps back, telling her to be grateful she's accepting the disc, causing Saori and Kyo to laugh. After everything, they all head out of the building, but on the way, Karino bumps into Ayase and becomes speechless. Although Ayase is excited to see Karino, she finds it pretty weird to meet her in a place like this. Karino claims it's just a mere coincidence, but when she's asked what she's up to, she gives Kyo the side-eye, signaling for him to help her. Seeing it, Kyo steps up to talk to Ayase, who thinks he's on a date with Karino. To everyone's shock, Kyo admits he's on a date with Karino and adds that he's in a hurry. But before he can leave with Karino, Ayase suspects that something is up because Karino has barely said anything to her. She wonders if Karino is sick or something. And when Karino says yes, she offers to carry her bags and give her a ride home. However, Karino declines the offer, and Ayase notices that she's being overprotective of her bags. When asked if she knows Sori and Kuro, Karino acts surprised to see them, and they decide to leave. Kyo exhales because that was a close one, but he becomes worried when Karino mistakenly blows her cover. When Ayase senses that Karino is hiding something from her, Kyo notices and decides to take Karino away, but Ayase stops him and asks Karino why she's running away from her. Karino claims she isn't, but Ayase sees through it and calls her a liar, because it was obvious she was trying to get away quickly. She tells Karino she's worried about her, and her mood shifts as she mentions that she hates being lied to. She then recalls the bag and asks Karino what's in it, but since Karino is scared about her secret getting out, she ignores her and decides to run away. Unfortunately, Ayase catches up to her before she can get far, but she mistakenly tears the bag and sees all the sus manga Karino bought earlier, leaving both Kyo and Karino shocked. On reading one of them, Ayase tells Karino she can't be friends with her anymore and walks away. On the way home, Kuro recalls how Karino denied knowing her, and though she feels bad about it, she knows Karino didn't mean it. Later that evening, Kyo gets on a call with Sori and thanks her for playing along with the Ayase thingy earlier, but Sori brushes it off as no big deal. The next day, Karino acts like yesterday didn't happen and heads out to compete in a race. Despite everything, she wins and comes out as the best athlete, but her mood shifts when she returns home and sees Kyo. Kyo tells her he's gotten better at the game she gave him, but she ignores him and walks away. About a week later, Kyo heads back from school with Manami, who is excited because it's been a while since they walked home together. She's noticed that something has been bothering him, so she asks what's up, but Kyo keeps insisting that nothing is going on. But when he sees Karino pacing across the street, he leaves Manami behind to talk to her. At home, he asks her if she's spoken to Ayase since then, but her reaction makes him realize that she hasn't. Pissed, Karino tells him to zip it and not get fooled because she recently started talking to him. She calls him a creep and gives him the middle finger, but Kyo accepts it as long as he gets to tell her to patch things up with Ayase. When he asks why she hasn't patched things up with Ayase, she fumbles an excuse that she was at a training camp and had no time to talk to her, but she admits she didn't call her either. Hearing this, Kyo advises her to make up with Ayase, but before he can finish, she tells him to zip it and leave her alone, insisting he has no right to play senior brother since he's been absent from her life until recently. Shocked, Kyo wonders why she said something like that, but Karino kicks him in the sacks, frustrated that she knows she's meant to fix things with Ayase. She then starts crying and begs Kyo to advise her and take responsibility for her actions. The following day, Kyo calls Ayase and tries to talk some sense into her, but Ayase insists on staying away from Karino because of her weird hobbies. She starts suspecting Kyo, claiming that Karino wasn't always like that, and it's thanks to him that she ended up that way. Kyo denies the claim and asks her how things went with Karino, so she tells him it was a waste of time. She admits she tried to make up with Karino, but it didn't work because Karino was bent on keeping her weird hobbies. The reply made Ayase think that Karino valued her hobbies more than their friendship, and she felt bad about it. Hearing this, Kyo asks why she hates Karino's hobbies, and she talks about a report she saw on the news about how freaky video games cause an Alabama 19 virus pandemic in the country. She says games like that destroy the mind and speaks of a man who was influenced by a game to electrocute a girl. Kyo is left shocked as she mentions that the suspect was identified as an otaku affiliated with one of the games Karino is crazy about. As she yells that such games should not exist, Kyo gets on his computer to research the case, and after the call, he realizes that Ayase is only worried about Karino. Minutes later, he hits a dead end in his research, so he decides to confide. While his dad thinks it's about his future, he is shocked when his airhead son lies that a girl caught him carrying a ton of adult manga. He almost gets a heart attack while trying to process this and ends up wishing he used protection 20 years ago. Despite that, Kyo begs him for help, and he agrees. After their conversation, Kyo meets Ayase in person and tries to talk to her about his findings on the criminal case she talked about earlier. Turns out, his father knew about the case and told him the suspect wasn't influenced by any game. When Ayase learns about this, she thinks Kyo is lying, until she sees a report of a journalist's statement showing that the suspect wasn't influenced by any game or anime. She's shocked by everything and wants to believe that all otakus are freaks, but Kyo insists that not all of them are bad. Eventually, she accepts she was wrong about the crime case, yet she still insists that Karino's hobbies are repulsive. Kyo claps back, saying that Karino only kept her hobby a secret because she was scared of losing her friends. But Ayase claims that she's fake and insists Kyo return the real Karino to her. As things heat up, Karino shows up and tells both of them to zip it. She tells Kyo to step aside and then opens up to Ayase, saying that she can't let go of her or her hobbies either. She says she wants to maintain both aspects of her life because if she drops her hobbies, she'll stop being herself. Despite that, Ayase tears up because she can't accept Karino's hobbies, so Karino gives Kyo the side-eye, signaling that he should do something. Seeing this, he pulls out a Mirror manga and shows it to Ayase, which leads to him getting slapped in the face. He claims the manga is proof of the love he has for Karino and lies that they've been collecting the forbidden manga to demonstrate their forbidden love. He says it recently helped to mend the broken bonds between him and Karino and confesses that he's in love with her. Hearing this renders Ayase speechless, so she takes Karino from Kyo and makes up with her on the spot. But after that, she points fingers at Kyo, telling him to stay away, fully convinced that he wants to clap Karino. Around sunset, Ayase texts him and thanks him for lying his sacks off to save her friendship, but threatens to expose his browser history if he ever gets freaky with Karino. A few days later, Manami meets Kyo at school and invites him to her house for Halloween because her family will be making sweet treats. Kyo agrees, but as Manami walks away, some dude named Akagi shows up and starts asking Kyo if he's in a romantic relationship with Manami. Kyo says no one wonders why Akagi asked the question, so Akagi tells him it's because he's always with Manami in class. Hearing this, Kyo explains it's because he's been close to Manami ever since they were young, and he admits that there's nothing weird going on between them. But when Akagi asks how he'll feel if some dude ends up piping Manami, he flares up and says he'll kick the guy in the sacks. Akagi shakes his head after hearing this because he now understands that Kyo is gatekeeping Manami's innocent cheeks. Later that afternoon, Karino arrives home and becomes excited when a package arrives for her. Her mom asks what's in the box, but she lies that it's a massager so the woman doesn't find out about the sus things in it. In the meantime, Kyo joins Manami at her place and is shocked when he finds her grandfather's cold body lying in the living room. He acts quickly and tries to revive the old man, while Manami runs off to call an ambulance. However, as she rushes out, her grandmother enters the room like everything is fine and smiles when she sees Kyo worrying about the old man. She tells him Gramps is playing dead because it's Halloween, but Kyo finds it hard to believe since the old man's body is very cold. Grandma says it's because he stayed in the freezer for a while, and since the old man doesn't want to drop the act, Grandma climbs on top of him, threatening to pull his sacks if he refuses. Immediately, Grandpa jolts awake, and Kyo wonders how Manami lives a normal life when her grandparents are degenerate losers. Before long, Manami arrives, and she's happy that it was all a prank. When asked, Grandpa claims he played dead because he's practicing his costume for Halloween. Kyo admits he played the dead man role pretty well, but tells him to turn it down so the young ones won't get traumatized. Afterward, Manami heads off with Grandma to get sweet treats for Kyo, but as she leaves, Grandpa teases Kyo for getting chicks at school. Kyo denies this, admitting he spends all of his time binge-watching OnlyFans models, but Grandpa doubles down and asks if he's clapped any hotties yet. As Kyo denies this, Manami's brother, Iwao, shows up looking like Saitama with bushy eyebrows. Turns out, he just had a clean shave, and he says he did it because Grandpa told him all the hot baddies would start thirsting after his sausage. Kyo is shocked after hearing this, including Iwao, who realizes he's been betrayed when he sees Grandpa laughing so hard. A while later, Kyo is served a meal, and he becomes excited when he realizes that it's delicious. As he compliments the dish, he learns that Manami made it and turns red because she put so much effort into making it. Meanwhile, Grandpa hides under the table, wishing they could just get married already and give him great grandkids. After the meal, Manami suggests taking Kyo to her room, but on the way, Grandpa gives Kyo his blessing and tells him just the tip would do the trick. Upstairs, Manami tells Kyo to wait outside her room so she can quickly hide her plot armors, but as she leaves, Kyo shivers, thinking today might finally be the day he loses his V card. But when Manami lets him into her room, he decides to lie down and rest rather than rip her clothes to eat her cake. Later on, Manami serves him tea to soothe his nerves, and she begins talking about a Halloween fair her family will host soon. Though he's already tired, Kyo offers to help since the fair thingy would require a lot of work. In the meantime, Kuro mocks Karino over text for ordering a sus pillow from her favorite anime brand, but Karino claps back, saying it's her duty as a fan to buy things from her favorite brand. She claims there's nothing wrong with buying cute pillows, but Kuro says it might stir up weird fantasies if she uses them too much. This stirs a heated argument between both sides, but Saori calms things down when she asks about Kyo. Karino says Kyo hasn't come back from school yet, and deep down, she hates that now she needs him, he's nowhere to be found. Hearing this, Kuro mocks her, saying Kyo is probably refusing to come back because her succubus aura scared him off, but Karino claps back, claiming he might be with his bestie, Manami. Back at Manami's place, Kyo helps with the heavy lifting, and he gets really exhausted when all the work is done. Manami thanks him for the help and asks if he'd like to take a shower first or eat. The shower part shocks Kyo because he never planned to spend the night, but when he recalls that it's been a while since he did, he agrees to it. As they head back inside, Manami asks if he stopped spending the night because he felt nervous around her, but Kyo says that wasn't the case. He admits that sleeping with her makes him feel more relaxed, but doesn't mention that it's because Karino gives him a hard time at home. Meanwhile, Manami wishes he were a bit nervous around her, but she doesn't say why. Later that evening, while Karino joins her parents for dinner, her father notices that Kyo isn't around, so his wife tells him Kyo is going to spend the night at Manami's place, leaving Karino annoyed. On the other hand, as Kyo finishes dinner, Manami tells him to get ready to shower, but he says he's okay with going when she's done. Surprisingly, Manami tells him to join her in the bathroom. Although the request stuns him, he agrees to it, and Iwo cheers him because it means he'll finally get to become a man. However, Manami grows scared when Kyo gets too excited about bathing with her, because although she's fit, the other thing might not fit. But as she crawls away to seek advice from her grandpa, who instigated the bathroom thing, Grandma tells her to go for it. Surprisingly, Manami somehow manages to survive a shower session with Kyo, but she ends up falling victim to Grandpa's trap, because he placed her bed in Kyo's room, meaning she gets to sleep with him. Kyo is shocked about the whole thing because he isn't ready, but Manami tells him she's okay with it, as long as he goes nice and slow. Unfortunately, Kyo calls it quits because it didn't fit, but as he lies down to sleep, Manami starts a heart-to-heart conversation about how she'd like to go to college with him. Curious, Kyo asks how she'd feel if someone told her he loves her, and she freaks out, wondering why he's asking. But after she says she doesn't know what she'd do, she asks Kyo the same question, and he tells her he'll turn the person down because women can be a lot to handle. Before lying down to sleep, Manami gets shy and asks to spend the night at his place sometime, but he catches on and agrees to it. Meanwhile, Karino lies miserable in her bed, cussing Kyo because he chose to spend the night with someone else. The following week, Kyo returns home from school and freaks out when he sees Kuro in the living room. Curious, he asks what's up, and she tells him she came over to watch the Maruru anime show at his place. Before now, she got into an argument with Karino because she took too long to watch the first 6 episodes of the anime, and her excuse was that she couldn't stand the brain rot. Karino was triggered when she heard this, so she got back at Kuro by calling her favorite anime trash. As their argument escalated, Saori suggested that they host a viewing session of both their favorite anime so they could understand each other better. Presently, Kyo asks about Karino, and Kuro tells him she's in her room. He also asks about Saori and learns that she's absent because something came up, meaning that Kuro was left all alone with Karino. He quickly figures they had a fight, and just as he wonders what caused it, Saori texts him, entrusting both girls into his care. Afterwards, he asks Kuro why she fought with Karino, and she says it's because Karino forced her to read a novel she wrote. Hearing this, Kyo immediately guesses maybe the novel was boring, but Kuro says it was worse than that. She says she felt like unaliving Karino when she read it, especially because Karino made herself the main character and subjected her to getting pumped and dumped by 3 dudes in the story. Kyo is shocked after hearing this, so he stops by Karino's room when he heads upstairs. Karino takes too long to get the door, but when she does, she gives him the look and calls him out for disturbing her gaming session. Irritated, Kyo slams her for inviting Kuro over and leaving her by herself, but Karino argues that Kuro caused their fight. At first, Kyo thinks she's lying and immediately brings up the novel stunt she pulled, but Karino claims Kuro did worse. She shows him a novel Kuro wrote, and he realizes Kuro wrote Karino's character as a thirsty who got paid cheaply for servicing. He freaks out, thinking Kuro has crossed a line, but he recalls that Karino wrote something similar about her in her novel and decides to settle their differences by making them watch anime together. The first one up is Karino's favorite, and she starts singing loudly when the theme song plays. Kyo is shocked that she's already getting excited from the beginning, while Kuro sits there, regretting why she signed up to watch. She calls the anime out for showing explicit content, but Karino argues that the freaky parts are censored. After that, she keeps singing and vibing to the anime's theme song, while Kyo sits there, wishing he could unsee what he's watching. As time goes on, Kuro takes the time to see what the anime is about, but she gets disappointed with the plot and trashes it. This pisses Karino off, so she claps back by calling Kuro's favorite anime a rejected Wattpad smut with subtitles. Hearing this worsens Kuro's mood, and it leads to a heated argument, with Kyo stuck at the center. wishing he had passed up Sorei's request. The following day, he returns from school and is shocked to find Karino staring at him with murderous intent. When he asks what's up with her, she yells at him for using her computer to browse porn sites and watch OnlyFans models. She tells him she was traumatized by what she saw, and Kyo ends up begging her to calm down since he doesn't want her to expose his weird preferences. As he apologizes and swears never to check adult sites again, she tells him to make it up to her by giving her advice for something she wants to do, and he agrees. Turns out she's written another novel and has gotten a noveling company interested in her work. Kyo is shocked when he finds out, but Karino tells him not to get excited yet because her editor told her to tweak some things in her novel so readers could vibe with it. She then heads out with Kyo to gather research on how humans behave so she can convey their emotions in her book. Her first stop is a major road, and she coldly tells Kyo to stand in the middle of the street and get run over by a car. Shocked, Kyo wonders how his death will help her research, but Karino's excuse is that she wants to convey fear and panic to her readers. Feeling bad, Kyo tells her his life isn't a guinea pig for her sus social experiment, because even though he's ugly, he wants to live long enough to clap Megan Fox and all her friends. Karino considers his complaints when she thinks things through and decides to take pictures of the street instead. After that, she stops by a jewelry store to get a feel of what going out on a date feels like, and it makes Kyo uncomfortable because she's his sister. Though he manages to survive it, Karino feels ashamed to call him her brother when she realizes he doesn't have enough cash to propose with a gold ring she picked. She ends up paying for it and leads the way to another store that has cheaper accessories. As time goes on, Karino crosses most things on her list, and Kyo gets frustrated because she still has more things to do. He tells her to call it quits and go home, but Karino refuses, insisting that he hasn't been any help at all. Kyo gets annoyed after hearing this, and he doesn't hold back when he calls Karino's novel a written adaptation of Corn Mags. While he speaks, Karino gets sad and falls behind, but she takes advantage of her mood and pours water on herself, all in the quest to create a sad scene that she'll write in her novel. Seeing this leaves Kyo completely stunned, but he plays along with her weird fantasy and becomes the Prince Charming who'll take her home. However, they end up in a love hotel, and while Karino takes a shower, Kyo receives a call from Manami, who asks if he's with another chick. He tells her he's with Karino, and she assumes they are on a date, but he ends the call immediately after Karino mistakenly blurts out that they're in a love hotel. He then calls Karino out for wearing a revealing night robe, but she gets pissed and wonders why he'd feel uncomfortable in the first place. Recalling that her novel depicts the main character sleeping with Prince Charming, he realizes she's meant to be with him for the night, but she cancels the experiment because she can already sense the danger in Kyo's pants. Eventually, they head home, and on the way, Karino gets excited because she's realized how she'll end her novel. A week after Karino's book goes live, she's called by her hot manager, Fate, who shows her the numerous positive reviews readers dropped on the novel. Karino is excited that there are many of them, but she gets even more excited when Fate tells her that the higher-ups want to animate her novel. At school, Karino tells Ayase about her book and insists she keep it a secret so her mates won't find out. Ayase agrees to it, but that's when Kanako shows up and talks about someone who recently published a novel. She doesn't know Karino is behind it, and she feels she could just hop on the trend and make money from writing an adult novel, but Ayase tells her it isn't that easy. Later that day, Sorei congratulates Karino for securing the animation deal, but Kuro remains quiet and her mood screams that she's jealous. Karino catches on and teases her for being ignored by publishing brands despite how good she is, but when Kuro has had enough, she threatens to expose Karino's Amazon order history. Scared, Karino calms down and goes straight to the point on why she invited them for lunch. She tells them she's going to her first anime staff meeting and she'd like them to show up. Hearing this, Kuro smiles and realizes that the meeting might be too much for Karino to handle, and though Karino denies this, it becomes pretty clear that she's nervous about everything. The girls agree to join Karino for the meeting, and when the time comes, Fate hosts them. She introduces them to the board of directors, and one of them allows Karino to present all her ideas for the anime. Karino goes overboard in covering the details of what she wants the anime to look like, but when she's done running her mouth, the board members tell her they can't implement everything she wants. One reason is that the voice actors she's aiming for are popular celebrities with busy schedules, and another is that stretching the anime past the first season is costly. The chairman of the directors cuts in, asking why all the little sisters like the main character despite being a girl, and Kuro replies that Karino is projecting herself on the character. To make it more mainstream, the director asks if it's okay to change the main lead to a male, and the question shocks Karino. She struggles to get to her room that evening, and after barging into her brother's door, Kyo quickly catches her from falling and wonders what's wrong with her. He then meets with Saori and Kuro, informing them that his sister is stressed out, and they brief him on what happened. Saori tells them from her findings that the board members want to use Karino's work to fill in the gap of a recently cancelled anime. Kyo then asks them how they plan to save the board directors from ruining Karino's work. Kuro at first acts like she doesn't care, but then chooses to join them. They meet up with Fate, and the girls introduce Kyo to her, saying they should treat his opinion on the same level as Karino's. Fate then organizes a meeting with the board of directors, and Kyo meets with them, acting as Karino's representative. At the meeting, the board of directors continues from where they left off, ignoring Kyo like a roadside beggar. As they discuss, Kyo halts the meeting, telling them Karino's book has no meaning with the changed ideas they plan to implement. He comes clean to them about how their version seems so standard and generic, wanting them to implement his sister's instead. But they tell him there are many issues with her work, and their job is simply making animated stories. Whether or not the author is fine with the final product, Kyo gets emotional, but they remind him that Karino is a business partner to them, and what's important is fine-tuning her work to make profits, because without that, the people won't watch. The director cuts to the chase by revealing he had already turned down the story once. He believes the concept is good, but doesn't see how it can succeed as a series. He then tosses the novel, saying that he doesn't find it interesting at all, and if they don't like his ideas, the board can cancel the show. Cornered, Kyo struggles to find the right words, but to their surprise, Kuro steps in and questions the director's judgment. She tells him to reread the original manuscripts if he has time to complain all day. Before Fate can interject at her rude behavior, Kuro agrees that the novel is boring and wonders how it even got chosen to be adapted. Her stance takes a complete 180, which leaves Kyo wondering whose side she's on. Kuro then expresses how frustrating it feels to have an underwhelming work approved by higher-ups after all the effort she's put into her own projects. Speaking directly to the manager, she relates to him by comparing his dusty novel to Arsenal's empty trophy cabinet, while he still gets to script something of lesser quality. After venting, Kyo takes the cue to speak and uses it well, telling them about the effort Karino has put into her work despite her busy schedule. On behalf of his sister, Kyo kowtows before the board members, pleading with them to listen to what Karino has to say and do their best to animate her work. Kuro agrees with him and asks the director to put his beef aside and see if the work can be adapted without the changes. The director broods on it, and after the meeting, Kyo and the girls take a train home. There he asks them to keep it a secret from Karino, and they assure him. Curious, Kuro asks why he does so much for Karino, even losing face for her, but Kyo struggles to find an answer. She calls him a bunch of names that would get the channel flagged, but he refuses to admit it, saying it's because he's her brother. Wondering what it feels like to have someone go that far for her, Kuro says it must be nice. Days later, at home, Karino sees that the anime board is ready to go on with her ideas, and she thinks it's because of her passion, believing that being direct with them really helped. Meanwhile, Kyo quietly listens, and when he asks for an autograph, she declines, telling him that the next consultation with him will be the final one. Kyo returns home from a quick shopping trip one day, and Karino seems rather disappointed that he was the one who walked through the door. This immediately spikes Kyo's curiosity because for days now she has been distant, claiming their life counseling sessions were over. The mystery clears up soon enough when a delivery arrives. Karino rushes to the door, snatches up the package, and clutches it excitedly, because inside is the long-awaited adult game she has been anticipating for weeks. Without hesitation, she runs upstairs and begins installing it on her computer. While the progress bar drags on slowly, she impatiently fetches herself some snacks, which she munches on to pass the time. Once the installation finishes, Karino throws herself into the game. She starts with Rinko's route, a classic tsundere heroine who lashes out at the protagonist with harsh words and a cold attitude. At first, Karino laughs at the character's prickly behavior, but as the story continues, her amusement fades. Rinko's stubborn personality begins to frustrate her, almost as though the character is highlighting Karino's own flaws in a way she doesn't want to acknowledge. Irritated, Karino abandons that path and switches to Miyabi's route. In contrast to Rinko, Miyabi is warm, affectionate, and overflowing with love. As the story unfolds, Karino is drawn in, and when Miyabi finally looks at the protagonist and declares her love for Oni-chan, the line completely disarms her. Karino's face flushes red, and she finds herself replaying the moment repeatedly. For a brief time, the boundary between the game and reality blurs, and she loses herself in the fantasy. Meanwhile, Kyo tries to get some studying done in the quiet of his own room, but peace is impossible. Through the thin walls, his sister's shrieks and outbursts echo loudly, breaking his concentration, no matter how hard he tries to block it out. Karino's excited squeals from her game keep pulling his attention away from his books. Later that evening, Karino takes a short break from her marathon session. With an armful of fresh clothes, she heads toward the bathroom for a quick shower. On the way, she happens to bump straight into Kyo in the hallway. In the scramble, her laundry slips from her grasp, and to her horror, the only thing that falls to the floor is a pair of panties. Kyo, unsure of what to do, tries to point it out to her, but Karino reacts instantly. She snaps at him, calling him disgusting degenerate, and slaps him across the face before storming off. Once her shower is over, Karino wastes no time returning to her room and throwing herself back into the game to continue her marathon. Elsewhere, life looks a little different for the other members of the all-girls Otaku group. At Kuro's place, the usually weird gothic girl spends her evening caring for her younger sisters. She cooks dinner, cleans up around the house, and even does some sewing, revealing a responsible, nurturing side that her friends rarely get to see. Saori, on the other hand, is busy with her own project. She secretly works on custom-made maid outfits, carefully preparing them as a surprise for her friends. Back at Kyo's place, he feels restless and in need of someone to talk to. He picks up his phone and calls Kuro, checking in on her and asking how she has been doing. Kyo even tries to invite her out to an event, but Karino's voice cuts through again, this time louder and more furious than before. Inside her room, she is fully immersed in Rinko's route once again, and she gets pissed after getting rejected by the character. She slams her fists against the desk and shouts angrily at the monitor, venting her frustration, and Kyo finally reaches his breaking point. Fed up, he slams his fist against the wall and shouts for her to quiet down. Instead of backing off, Karino immediately bites back, accusing him of eavesdropping and intruding on her private hobby, gaslighting him as usual. Kyo doesn't argue further, but in that moment, he becomes more aware that Karino's attachment to her weird video games runs deeper than surface-level entertainment, but on a much more emotional level. By the time she finishes playing through the main routes, the experience leaves her conflicted. Rinko, with her icy attitude and stubborn personality, only frustrates her further because Karino can see too much of herself in that reflection. The harshness, pride, and difficulty in expressing softer feelings all feel uncomfortably familiar. On the other hand, Miyabi represents the kind of unconditional closeness she secretly longs for but struggles to admit. Later that night, Karino runs into Kyo again in the hallway. The moment she sees him, she shoots him a glare containing a mix of embarrassment at being overheard and annoyance that he dares to comment on her behavior. Without saying a word, she kicks his leg, and Kyo groans in response, but instead of snapping back, he simply sighs and wishes her good night before walking away. One morning, Ayase calls Kyo out to meet her in the park, and when he gets there, she tells him her plans about getting Karino a present and asks him for ideas. Confused, he points out that given how close they are, his sister would be pleased at whatever present Ayase gives her. Besides, he doesn't consider himself to be in the best position to decide what a girl would find befitting for a present. Ayase replies that although she knows her best friend would accept any presents she offers, it simply wouldn't be otaku enough for her. She tells Kyo about how she had mistakenly violated otaku rules by asking Karino of the point of wasting her money on the same kind of anime figurine, and adds that Karino has been acting really off towards her since the fumble. Not wanting to lose her best friend, she had made up her mind to get her a gift related to her otaku hobby to show that she cares. Seeing that she doesn't really understand Karino's world and has no clue where to start, she tells Kyo he is her only option to set things straight between them, trusting that, as Karino's brother, he would know what would cheer her up. Agreeing to the request, Kyo approaches Karino at home and tries to probe what she might want, but she immediately gets defensive and shuts him out. She brings up the fact that he has been getting weirdly close to her friends, which is starting to make her suspicious. Kyo jokingly replies, asking her why she's getting all worked up when it's not like she's his girlfriend. But Karino's temper explodes and she high-fives his face, making his cheeks so red that it can literally stop traffic. Frustrated, Kyo still doesn't give up. Instead, he decides to meet up with some of Karino's other friends, who are more likely to know her hobbies best. Kyo meets up with Saori and Kuro at their usual hangout spot and explains the entire situation to them. The three quickly decide to team up and start searching for a gift that Karino would genuinely appreciate. They head to the mall, determined to find something meaningful. Saori enthusiastically starts throwing out suggestions, ranging from cute plushies to collectible doujinshi. Kuro, however, shoots down most of these ideas, pointing out that since Karino is a hardcore fan, she probably already owns most of the things Saori is suggesting. After wandering through several stores without finding anything that feels special enough, the group eventually gives up and starts heading back. On their way home, they stumble upon a large poster displayed outside an anime shop, and it immediately catches their attention. On the poster is an advertisement for a cosplay contest based on Meru, The poster promises a rare, limited edition Muraru figurine as the grand prize for the winner. The three of them immediately realize this could be the perfect solution and a one-of-a-kind gift that Karino would absolutely treasure and brag about for years. Later that evening, Kyo meets up with Ayase to share their new plan. At first, Ayase becomes flustered and hesitant. Even though she's a professional model who's used to posing in front of cameras, the idea of performing on stage in front of a crowd and potentially wearing an embarrassing or revealing costume makes her extremely uncomfortable. Kyo teasingly cuts in and points out that even with her natural good looks, it won't be easy for her to win the contest unless she goes all in and shows some skin. That suggestion earns him an immediate punch to the gut, leaving him doubled over. After she cools off a bit, Ayase reluctantly admits that Kyo isn't completely wrong, as she's aware that winning wouldn't be easy. However, she's still firmly against the idea of wearing anything too revealing. So, instead of competing herself, she decides she'll find someone else who can enter the contest and bag the prize for Karino. She comes up with an idea to involve one of her classmates, Kanako Kurusu, who is a part-time idol. Kyo, playing along, pretends to be a big-shot artist manager and catfishes Kanako into dressing up as Muraru, the anime character she'd be contesting as. They then tell her about the contest, so she has no other choice but to participate. When Kyo, Ayase, and Kanako finally arrive at the cosplay contest venue, they're taken aback by what they see. Instead of youngsters and families, it's a sea of grown men with glow sticks and camera lenses the size of rocket launchers, which is a strange sight considering the contest is centered around the Muraru anime show. As the contest begins, Kyo and Ayase are shocked to spot Karino in the crowd, but they quickly split up so she won't notice them together and get the wrong idea. Kyo is even more shocked to see his sister casually there without any attempt at a disguise. Worried that someone might recognize her, he discreetly slips her a hat so she can at least cover her face. After a long string of contestants with mixed levels of effort and talent, it's finally Kanako's turn to perform. The moment she steps on stage, she completely steals the spotlight. Not only does she look exactly like Muraru, but she also radiates confidence and charm, instantly captivating the audience. As she performs the theme song, the entire hall erupts in loud cheers, and even Karino can't help but join in. Kyo and Ayase watch in stunned silence, impressed at how completely Kanako embodies the character. They knew she had the looks, but neither of them expected her to put on such a powerful performance. The results get announced, and Kanako narrowly beats out the reigning champion by the smallest margin possible, earning first place. She's handed the rare, limited edition figurine as the room bursts into applause and cheers. After the contest, however, Kyo and Karino approach Kanako and quickly get a glimpse of her real personality. The sweet, idol-like persona she showed on stage vanishes almost immediately, and she starts mocking the other contestants and even making cutting remarks about the audience that just cheered her on. Karino, who still hasn't realized she's Kanako, gets traumatized as she storms out. Later, Kyo hands over the figurine to Ayase, who then delivers it to Karino as a gift, and Karino accepts it gratefully. One morning, Kyo is in his room, playing one of Karino's adult sister-themed games. He's so fully immersed, clicking through dialogue, that he doesn't notice his mom gets to his door. His mom suddenly calls out to him and tries to open the door, and Kyo realizes he is about to get caught in 4K. He immediately uses the escape button to close the game and tries to play it cool, but his mom still teases him, accusing him of watching spicy videos on his sister's laptop. Kyo's mom ends up sending him to pick up some groceries at a convenience store. While at it, he bumps into Manami. They chat a bit, and Kyo jokingly complains about his mom's miserable cooking skills, resulting in them not eating anything other than curry. He casually suggests Manami should come over to his house sometime to help out with cooking, and to his surprise, she agrees. When the day finally comes, Manami arrives at Kyo's house, ready to help out with the chores. The moment Karino sees her, she doesn't even bother pretending to be polite. She glares at Manami coldly, then storms off to her room without saying a word. Caught in the middle, Kyo tries to figure out what's wrong and asks his sister why she's acting that way. Karino then fires back with a question of her own, asking how he would feel if she suddenly showed up at the house with some random boy. Sensing the tension, Manami immediately tries to ease the situation. She gently explains that she didn't mean to intrude and only came to lend a hand with the cooking and cleaning. But Karino, unwilling to back down, takes the petty route instead. She puts on a bossy act and tells Manami to start by cleaning the living room. To her annoyance, Manami doesn't resist at all. She happily gets to work, and within no time, the entire room looks spotless. From her room, Karino watches in irritation, realizing her little power play has backfired completely. Not ready to admit defeat, Karino tries a different tactic and attempts to rage bait Manami into losing her temper. Yet no matter what she does, Manami stays calm and unbothered, smiling through every attempt, frustrated that her usual tricks aren't working. Karino eventually changes strategy once again. She comes out of her room, sits with them for lunch as if nothing had happened, then retreats to her room. After lunch, Kyo decides to take Manami to his room, but as soon as they step inside, Kyo panics. Karino's laptop is sitting there with a sus video game running, and the screen is wide open. He practically dives across the room to close it before Manami notices, but unknowingly to him, Manami spots some open magazines lying around his room, which he vaguely remembers putting away. He then realizes he has been set up by his sister. All of a sudden, the game he thought he exited on Karino's laptop comes back on again, confirming to Manami that he's into some weird Oni-chan stuff. Kyo starts to panic, but surprisingly, Manami just teases him, suggesting maybe she should start calling him Oni-chan as well, and he gets so embarrassed, he wishes Truck-kun isekai'd him already. The following day, Kyo heads to a hotel room as directed by Saori for an anime celebration party that they had organized for Karino. Getting there, he expects something casual, but is immediately thrown off when he sees Saori, Kuro, and Karino welcoming him in maid outfits. Like they're running their own cafe, the three of them suddenly start treating him like an honored guest, serving him tea and snacks like an actual customer in their cafe. After a bit of awkward silence, Kuro decides it's the perfect moment to unveil her big surprise. She pulls out her laptop and proudly shows off a brand new manga she had written especially for the occasion. At first, Kyo is curious, but his expression quickly changes when he realizes that the main characters have an uncanny resemblance to him and Karino, just reimagined in a dark, gothic fantasy setting. When he points this out, Kuro just calmly explains that she only borrowed their appearances, not their personalities, as if that somehow makes it better. But things get weirder when the story reaches a scene where the Karino-like character is sniffing the underwear of the Kyo-like character. Both siblings immediately lose their cool, shouting at Kuro in outrage. She just smirks mischievously and scrolls through even more of the bizarre scenes, clearly enjoying their reactions. Finally, Karino can't take it anymore and confiscates Kuro's laptop before things get even more out of hand. When it's Karino's turn to do something nice for Kyo, she stubbornly refuses at first, still sulking. The others try to coax her into joining the fun, reminding her why they planned this get-together in the first place, but she just stands there, pouting like a kid. Seeing how they're getting nowhere, Kuro casually slides over to sit next to Kyo and asks what he really thought of her manga. Kyo admits that while most of the scenes were exaggerated for comedic effect, they weren't too far from reality. Kyo, still slightly embarrassed, points out that there was one thing she got completely wrong. In real life, Karino never calls him Oni-chan. Kuro smiles slyly at that and teases him, saying it almost sounds lonely when he says it. Then, just to push Karino's buttons, she casually calls him Ni-san in front of her. That's the last straw for Karino, who immediately starts throwing whatever she can grab at Kyo while yelling at him and calling him gross. Kyo eventually loses it and speaks up. He calls Karino out, admitting that he came to the party to forget about all the drama with Manami and just have some fun, but her constant jabs have been getting to him. The room falls silent as he demands an explanation for her unruly behavior. Saori and Kuro try to calm him down. However, Karino steps forward, this time dropping her usual smug act. As she sincerely apologizes for all the trouble she has caused him, she presents Kyo a present and thanks him for always supporting her, for convincing their dad to accept her hobbies, helping her patch things up with Ayase, and for introducing her to Saori and Kuro, who are now her closest friends. Saori and Kuro then reveal that the whole party was actually planned to cheer him up. They encourage Karino to be this honest more often, while Kyo gets moved to tears as he accepts the gift. The following morning, when Kyo wakes up, he notices that something about Karino feels off. While they have breakfast, she casually passes him a bowl of rice without a single sarcastic comment or irritated glare. Her unusual kindness to him makes him feel really weird. Later that day in school, Karino learns from Ayase that Kanako's recent cosplay performance has boosted her popularity and helped her inch closer to becoming a professional idol. Instead of her usual hateful comments, Karino congratulates Kanako and wishes her good luck in her endeavors. Later in the day, Kyo still can't shake off his uneasiness, hoping to make sense of Karino's recent behavior. He first checks with Ayase to see if she has noticed anything unusual. To his surprise, Ayase, who is usually the quickest to criticize Karino, reassures him that nothing seems out of the ordinary. Not satisfied with that answer, Kyo then calls Saori, thinking she might have picked up on something during their usual Otaku meetups. But Saori also tells him that Karino has been her normal self. Even with both of them dismissing his concerns, Kyo remains unconvinced. He has a lingering feeling that Karino's sudden politeness and gentleness are not without reason, almost as if they are leading up to something bigger. Later in the evening, his suspicions come to a head. Karino shows up at his room with an unusually serious expression and asks him to follow her. He does, and upon entering her room, he immediately notices how different it looks. Instead of the cluttered shrine to anime goods he is used to seeing, the room is much tidier, almost as though she has prepared it for the occasion. Karino then tells him that she has one final life counseling request for him. She explains that she needs him to go to a specific store that very night and purchase 2 newly released video games on her behalf. Kyo refuses immediately, but Karino insists. After some persuasion and persistence on her part, he finally gives in and agrees to carry out her request. So Kyo makes the late-night trip to Akihabara, the store, curious about why this seems so important to her. When he arrives, there's already a long line of otaku queued up outside the store for the midnight release. While waiting in the queue, Kyo unexpectedly runs into Akagi, who admits that he's there to buy Boys Love games, but not for himself. He claims he's buying them on behalf of his younger sister, who's also a hardcore otaku like Karino. The two boys share a warm moment, comforting each other about their miserable lives while they wait in line. Meanwhile, back at home, Karino is on the phone with Kuro, who is finishing up a handmade pair of cat ears she plans to give her. Kuro teases that she might start calling Kyo ni-san, which irritates Karino more than she'd like to admit. After hours of struggle, Kyo finally makes it back home, clutching the precious games like Dragon Balls. With Karino's help, he carefully sneaks upstairs and slips into her room, without waking up their parents. Once inside, Karino looks at him expectantly and asks if he wants to play together. Kyo, drained from the day's ordeal, considers saying no, but in the end, he agrees and sits down beside her. They start up the game, which tells the story of siblings separated by circumstances despite the love they have for one another. At the end of the narrative, Karino comments on how bittersweet it feels. She reflects that being apart from someone you truly care about can't always be bridged by phone calls or emails, and her words carry more weight than usual, leaving Kyo thoughtful. Eventually, exhaustion gets the better of him, and he rises to leave, planning to return to his room and finally rest. But before he can step away, Karino suddenly calls out and stops him, insisting on another life counseling session. This catches him off guard, since she had previously said their last one would be the final. He reluctantly agrees to wait, sensing there's something different about her mood. Instead of speaking right away, Karino falls into an unusual silence. She walks over to her hidden stash and retrieves a box filled with personal keepsakes that she has never shared with anyone. From inside, she pulls out a photo album but hesitates, almost second-guessing whether to open it in front of him. Just as she moves to put it back, Kyo snatches it from her hands. In the process, a folded plane ticket slips out and lands on the floor. Kyo picks it up, and his heart sinks as he realizes that it is a ticket to America, scheduled to depart that very morning. Shocked, he demands an explanation. Karino, cornered, finally admits that she has been scouted by a coach and offered the chance to train abroad. All this time, she's been using money saved from her modeling work and light novel writing to prepare for the trip. The sudden reality of her leaving hits Kyo harder than he expected. He asks why she never confided in him and why she thought it was fine to keep such a huge decision to herself. But Karino tells him that it isn't his business and that she already discussed everything with their parents and secured their approval. Kyo takes a deep breath and instead of stopping her, tells her to go. He tells her to chase her dream and do what's best for her. Hearing this, Karino's eyes widen. She hits him repeatedly for not stopping her and accidentally knocks down her laptop. All of a sudden, the game they were playing earlier mirrors their argument, as if the game's characters are voicing the words they can't. Kyo, still reeling, tells her again to go, which only makes her angrier. Finally, in a burst of frustration, Karino headbutts him, turning his lights out. The following morning, Kyo wakes up covered in tissues and bruises from getting jumped by his younger sister. When he goes downstairs, he's shocked to find Karino still at home. She calmly announces to their parents that she's decided not to go to America after all. To her surprise, everyone is glad she's not going. As they walk to school together, Karino admits in her own way that Kyo's words and actions the previous night made her reconsider. She stammers, trying to mask the sentimentality by acting like it wasn't a big deal, but it's clear she stayed for him. Kyo smiles the whole time to himself, just relieved that she's staying. Later, Karino goes to school and apologizes for any confusion her sudden behavior may have caused her friends. Things begin to settle back into place as she continues to hang out with Ayase, Kanako, Sori, and Kuro. Later at home, Karino tells Kyo that their life counseling isn't over just yet, and Kyo just smiles, happy that his little sister will still be there. The end. That brings us to the end of today's video. if you've watched up to this point. Let's confuse the fake anime watchers by commenting pink plots. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel, and give me 10k likes so I'll post unplotted. Also, if you're into anime recaps like this, check out the next video with lots of baby oils. Peace.